Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. Hey, special educators, it's Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome back. This is part 2 of the co-teacher conversation. You definitely want to listen to episode 67, which is part 1, to get all the context. In that episode, I talked about my own experience with co-teaching, and I really talked about the co-teaching relationship that wasn't. We did not have a partnership. It did not go well, and it didn't even really have a happy ending that school year. If you have ever felt as a special educator underappreciated or ineffective, you definitely want to listen to that episode. I'm sharing my experiences and providing helpful tips. In this episode, I'm going to provide the rest of the story, and I'm going to give some pro action tips that you can use if you're in a less than harmonious co-teaching partnership or just want to improve communication all around. In the last episode, I left off the story sharing that admin knew about the co-teaching fail, that there was no co-teaching, co-planning. There was no talking. There was no eye contact. I pretty much was a nervous Nelly and pulling small groups off to the side. I think we sat in the back corner every day. Now, there was one part of the story I did not share, and that was, as a special educator, I was required on the IEP for my students that we were in the classroom together with. I was required to provide indirect consultations. I'm not sure what they call that where you live and teach. But we had indirect consultations. It was a box we checked on the IEP, and it meant that I was providing consult to the general education teacher. And we often did 30 minutes per month. And it seems really silly because in most co-teaching relationships, you're talking 30 minutes every day, not a month. But this was a documented conversation, and it was in place just for these types of situations where there was not a ongoing communication, there was no ongoing relationship. So there I am as a first-year teacher having to provide consult to this teacher who really did not want to acknowledge my presence. And she really didn't during these meetings either. I'm not sure if she ever responded with words. I know she didn't look at my direction. It was kind of hard to get her to come to the meetings, but they were required. So what did I do? Well, I cringed a lot and I dreaded every single meeting. But what I also did was I made myself notes of exactly the questions I was going to ask, what I was going to share, and exactly what I was going to say. I wrote these out just like scripts. If this is starting to sound familiar, it's because I've done this before. Way back in the very first episodes of this podcast, I shared about how I was very nervous for IEP meetings, and I would write out scripts of exactly what I was going to say. It doesn't mean you're going to read them, but they're there for you in case you need them, and it's just a great way to get an idea of how to kick off a conversation and ask questions and respond, but also it just greatly reduces anxiety knowing that you have those words there to back you up in case you need them. And I needed them. As far as indirect consultations, I had made myself a list of questions, and these were focused specifically on the student that we were meeting about, the student who had an IEP. So I would bring the data, we would look at the data together, I would be guiding this conversation, talking about progress that's being made, asking, what do you think about this? And how do you feel about that? I will mention that there were many times I was providing services outside of the classroom, like in the enrichment classrooms, like we pulled out for science and we had other enrichments. I did that because I felt like I wasn't really able to be effective in this classroom. So that was kind of like a resolution that I had come to. So I was sharing how that was going and what I was seeing in small groups with these students and asking about accommodations. How do you feel this is going? Is there anything I can help you with? And the answer was always no, but I still tried. So the indirect consultations, as uncomfortable as they were, they really did follow a specific protocol. But there are other times that we need to have a conversation, and I have notes for those as well. I'm going to read off the topics. This comes from my co-teacher communication scripts. I have a packet of editable scripts. There's 15 different topics. Some of them are going to be really proactive topics, and some of them are going to be a little bit more reactive. And there's one that I want to dive into for this episode. All right, so here's the 15 topics. Establishing common goals and objectives. So there's a script to lead that conversation. That would be great if you were just kicking off the new partnership. Identifying shared priorities, students in classroom, clarifying each co-teacher's roles and responsibilities, collaborating lesson planning and preparation. We did not use that one. Discussing effective strategies, part 1 and 2, maintaining open and ongoing communication, working together to address challenges and solve problems. So those would not necessarily be problems with each other, but problems that are happening in the classroom. Addressing behavior management as a team, providing constructive feedback to each other. I don't mean to laugh, but that was not happening for us. Supporting students with diverse learning needs together. Leveraging each co-teacher's strength and subject knowledge. That was the one I was most bummed about. That would have been fantastic. Imagine how much the students would have benefited if we would have been able to get that. Staying flexible and adaptable as co-teaching partners. Resolving conflicts between co-teachers respectfully. We're going to come back to that one. Identifying areas for improvement and growth, and celebrating successes as a co-teaching team. You know, as I'm sharing these experiences, I'm focused in on the relationship that did not go well because I thought that was something that we just don't hear talked about enough. And I know other people have experienced this, but I have also had so many partnerships that have gone very well, from good to great to absolutely magical. And when I think about these topics, I think, oh, we didn't even need these. This was just natural conversation. We were excited and we just focused on our students. And that was just when everything was going so well. But we know that's not always the reality. So now I want to take a deeper dive and look at the script for resolving conflicts between co-teachers respectfully. I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is editable. You want to make it your own, but at least it gives you a jumping off point for these difficult conversations. Conflicts can arise in any collaborative setting, but how we handle them defines the strength of our partnership. One approach we can take is to approach conflicts with open-mindedness and empathy. Being open-minded helps us get where each other's coming from and find common ground. Let's make sure we actively listen to each other's concerns and feelings during conflicts. Active listening goes a long way in showing that we value each other's opinions and feelings. To sort things out, we can schedule a private meeting to discuss the conflict and work through this issue calmly. We can handle it without bringing in outside opinions. Let's keep the conversation focused on the specific concern and avoid personal attacks. Additionally, let's remain respectful in our language and tone, even if we have different opinions. We may not always agree, and that's okay. What matters is that we keep the mutual respect, and that's how we'll find solutions that work for both for us and our students. Let's also be willing to compromise and find a middle ground that benefits our co-teaching partnership and our students. All right, I'm not going to read the script like that in a conversation, but I like the messaging, and it almost reminds me of setting norms before a difficult meeting. I think that this script could be combined with some of the other topics so that you can get this partnership moving forward and stay professional. I actually have an entire set of scripts that are designed to support special educators, from communicating with co-teachers, paraprofessionals, family members, and running an IEP meeting. All of the things that you want to think about and the words you can borrow in case you're feeling as nervous as I was. They can serve as a great stress reducer if you want to tuck them in your IEP binder or on a clipboard before your next meeting. Now I want to give you the conclusion to my first year of co-teaching. The school year ended very much the way it ran. We never did build a relationship. We were professional. There's never fighting or bad words, but I don't know how professional it is if you're not acknowledging each other. I always felt sad because I thought the students just really missed out. This was a great teacher. I was trying my best as a teacher, and they could have gotten the best of both of us. I did end up looping that year, so it was great because I did find myself in one of those magical co-teaching relationships, and I had another opportunity to be with those students. So I got to really build relationships with them. This teacher ended up staying in the grade for several years, and she did have teachers' aides. And it seemed like they had a wonderful relationship. They really hit it off, and she was a terrific mentor to them. Fast forward a few years, I really started to grow as a teacher as I gained more experience, and we found ourselves on the same side of the teaching table again. We were both serving the role of interventionist and working with students at the bottom percentile. Now, we weren't exactly co-teaching, but we were sharing a teaching space and pretty much parallel teaching as we were polling small groups and rotating. We never did build a strong relationship, but we were friendly and we were able to talk and have eye contact, which was a huge improvement. That year, she also apologized for how things had gone down several years before, and I really appreciated that. I want to thank you for taking this trip down memory lane with me, both in this episode and the previous episode. I hope hearing these stories made you feel less alone. Co-teaching relationships are not easy, but when they really do click, it's so worth it, especially with the benefit for our students. Check out the resources with these editable scripts. See if that can help you guide the conversation and start to build the relationships in your co-teaching partnership. And please reach out and let me know if I can help with anything. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll be back next week with another topic in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.